Listen carefully. Your desire is not something waiting somewhere in the distant future. It is not something that will suddenly appear one day when the right conditions arrive. The moment you accepted it within your imagination, it already existed in another form. When you can step into that feeling completely and treat it as a reality that has already happened, your entire relationship with time begins to change. Life starts moving in ways that bring your outer world into harmony with what you have already accepted within yourself. Tonight, I want to share with you a powerful method that can transform the way you approach your desires. A method so simple that anyone can understand it, yet so profound that it can completely shift the way you experience manifestation. This practice is about stepping into your future and viewing it as something that has already become your past. Instead of constantly waiting for your dreams to arrive, you learn to experience them as memories of something that has already taken place. You learn to remember your success. You learn to remember your happiness. You learn to remember your desires as fulfilled experiences rather than distant possibilities. This is not ordinary visualization. It is not simply imagining something you hope will happen someday. This is the creation of an inner memory. And when you learn to create the feeling of remembering what you desire, you remove the invisible distance between where you are now and where you want to be. Are you ready to experience your future differently? Then let us begin. Before understanding this technique, you must first understand the mistake most people make when they try to create the life they want. Most people place their desires somewhere ahead of them. They imagine a future version of themselves who finally has everything they want. They think, once I have the money, then I will feel secure. Once I find the right person, then I will feel loved. Once I achieve success, then I will finally be happy. But there is a hidden problem inside this way of thinking. Every time you place your desire in the future, you are confirming that it is not yours right now. You are keeping yourself in a state of waiting. Always later, always someday, always almost there. But someday never arrives because life only exists in the present moment. The only place where change can happen is now. So when you continue saying, I will become wealthy, your mind keeps accepting the idea that wealth belongs to another time. When you repeat, I will find love, you continue identifying yourself as someone who is still searching for love. When you say, I will become successful, you reinforce the belief that success has not yet arrived. Your inner state creates your experience. If your dominant feeling is lack, you continue noticing more reasons to feel lacking. If your dominant feeling is waiting, you continue finding yourself in situations where you are waiting. This is why many people spend years repeating affirmations and imagining their dreams but still feel stuck. They are looking toward their desires instead of living from the feeling of already having them. Now here's the shift that changes everything. There is a way to bring your desired future into your present experience. And the secret is not found by chasing the future. It is found by changing the way you remember. At first this may sound confusing, so let me explain. Think about something that happened yesterday. When you remember it, do you feel like you are hoping it happened? Do you feel uncertain about whether it was real? Do you feel like you are trying to make it happen? No, you simply know it happened. There is no struggle. There is no doubt. There is only acceptance. A memory carries the feeling of something completed, something finished, something that belongs to your reality. And this is the feeling you must bring to your desires. Instead of seeing your dream as something you are waiting to receive, begin experiencing it as something you are remembering. Imagine looking back on your life from a point where everything has already worked out. Imagine remembering the moment your dream became real. This is where the transformation begins. Tonight, before you sleep, practice this. Close your eyes and move mentally into a future moment where your desire has already been fulfilled. Do not imagine the struggle of getting there. Do not focus on the moment of receiving it. Move beyond that moment. If you desire financial freedom, do not only imagine receiving money. Imagine yourself months later living with complete peace because abundance has become normal for you. If you desire a loving relationship, do not only imagine meeting someone. Imagine yourself later, already experiencing the connection, comfort, and happiness of that relationship. If you desire success, do not only picture the achievement itself. Imagine yourself after you have lived with that success for a while. Why? Because the moment of achievement still carries the energy of becoming. But the moment after achievement carries the energy of being. You are not trying to become, you are experiencing yourself as someone who already is. Close your eyes and enter that reality. Feel what it would be like if this was already your normal life. From that place, look back. Remember how it happened. Remember the day everything changed. Remember the emotions you felt when you realized your dream had become real. You are no longer imagining a future you hope to reach. You are remembering a reality you have already accepted within yourself. And this is where the power of this practice begins. From this new perspective, you are no longer standing in the present and looking toward the future. You have moved beyond the old version of yourself. You have stepped into the version of you who already experienced the fulfillment of the desire. And from that place, you look backward. You remember the journey. You remember the moments that led you there. You remember the changes that happened. You remember the feeling of finally realizing that everything worked out. This is the difference between simply wanting something and accepting it as your reality. When you only desire something, there is still a feeling of separation. There is a silent message underneath it. I do not have this yet. But when you remember it as something already accomplished, the feeling changes. There is no longer a chase. There is no longer desperation. There is only certainty. This is why this practice is so powerful. Most people try to create their future while remaining emotionally attached to their present circumstances. They look at what they currently see and allow that to decide what is possible. But your imagination is not limited by what exists around you right now. Your current circumstances are only a reflection of previous thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. The reality you experience today was created by the inner states you accepted before. So if you want a different experience tomorrow, you must first become familiar with that experience within yourself today. Let me give you an example. Imagine you desire to own your dream home. Most people would imagine searching for the house, applying for it, receiving the keys, or finally moving in. But this keeps your attention focused on the process of getting. Instead, use this method differently. Close your eyes and imagine yourself several months after moving into that home. You are sitting comfortably inside your living room. The house is no longer a dream. It is your normal life. You walk through the rooms naturally because you belong there. You feel the comfort of knowing this is your place. From this moment, you begin looking backward. You remember the day you received the keys. You remember sharing the news with the people you love. You remember the relief of knowing that everything aligned perfectly. Notice the difference. You are not creating a picture of something you are waiting for. You are creating the feeling of a memory. You are teaching your mind to accept this experience as something real. Your imagination becomes the place where your new reality begins. The important thing is not forcing yourself to believe something through effort. The important thing is entering the feeling naturally. Think about a memory from your own life. When you remember a birthday, a conversation, or a special moment, you do not struggle to believe it happened. You simply know. That same feeling of certainty is what you want to bring into your desired reality. This is why remembering your fulfilled desire can be more powerful than ordinary visualization. When people visualize, they often look at their dream from a distance. They see themselves trying to reach it. They see themselves waiting for it, and deep inside, they still feel separate from it. But when you remember something, separation disappears. A memory belongs to you. A memory feels personal. A memory feels accepted. Your subconscious mind responds to the feeling you repeatedly impress upon it. It does not judge whether something came through physical experience or through a deeply accepted inner experience. It responds to the state you occupy. If you constantly impress the feeling of lack, your mind continues searching for evidence of lack. If you constantly impress the feeling of fulfillment, your mind begins searching for evidence of fulfillment. Your assumptions influence your choices. Your expectations influence your actions. Your inner identity shapes the way you interact with life. When you begin seeing yourself as someone who is already blessed, already capable, already loved, you naturally begin moving differently. You notice opportunities you once ignored. You make decisions from confidence instead of fear. You stop chasing everything because you trust yourself more. The outside world begins reflecting the new relationship you have created with yourself. This is why the inner world must come first. Everything begins as an invisible idea before it becomes a visible experience. A building exists as a thought before it becomes a structure. A painting exists in the artist's imagination before it appears on a canvas. A new life begins within consciousness before it appears in physical form. Your imagination is not just a place where you escape reality. It is the place where you prepare yourself for a new reality. So tonight, when you practice this technique, do not approach it with desperation. Do not think, I need this to happen. Instead, approach it with the calmness of someone remembering something beautiful that has already happened. Feel the peace, feel the gratitude, feel the naturalness of it. The goal is not to force the universe. The goal is to align yourself with the version of you who already experiences what you desire. When you return to this state again and again, something begins to shift. Your thoughts change, your emotions change, your reactions change, and slowly your entire experience begins moving in a new direction. Because the person you become internally always influences the reality you experience externally. The future you desire is not something you have to chase endlessly. It begins the moment you accept it within yourself. When you begin living from the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, something powerful starts to happen. Your subconscious mind no longer works from a place of searching, struggling, or waiting. It begins operating from the belief that what you want is already a part of your experience. Now, let me show you how to strengthen this practice by understanding the feeling behind it. Think about a memory from yesterday. When you remember something that already happened, what kind of emotion comes with it? It is not the excitement of waiting. It is not the nervous feeling of wondering if it will happen. It is not the hope of something that may or may not come. Instead, it is calm. It is natural. It is the quiet certainty of knowing. You do not have to convince yourself that yesterday happened. You do not have to force belief. You simply accept it because it is already a fact in your experience. This is the exact emotional state you want to create when you remember your desire. Do not approach your dream with the energy of "I hope this happens." Do not hold it with the feeling of "maybe one day." Instead, enter the peaceful state of someone who knows. Yes, this happened. This is part of my story now. When you step into your future and look backward, you want to feel the same way you feel about yesterday. Normal, certain, complete. A person once came to me with a strong desire to receive a specific amount of money so they could purchase their dream home. For months, they imagined receiving the money, but nothing seemed to change. Over time, frustration and disappointment started replacing confidence. I told them to stop focusing on the moment of receiving the money. Instead, I asked them to move mentally beyond that moment. I said, imagine yourself several months from now. The money has already arrived, the payment has already been made, you're already living in your new home. From that point, look back and remember the day everything changed. Remember how the money came. Remember the emotions you felt when you realized it was finally yours. The person practiced this every night. After some time, something unexpected happened. They noticed that their relationship with money had completely changed. The desperation disappeared. The constant worry faded away. They no longer felt like someone chasing money. They began feeling like someone who already experienced abundance. They felt calm, stable, and certain. A few weeks later, the exact amount they needed came through a source they never expected. A family member they had not spoken with regularly reached out and offered support that helped make the dream possible. It arrived naturally, almost as if life had been waiting for their inner state to change. Now, understand the deeper meaning behind this technique. When you remember your future, you change your relationship with time. Time is not simply a fixed path where everything must happen in a strict order. Your consciousness creates your experience by the states you occupy. When you place yourself in the feeling of fulfillment and mentally look back from that position, you reduce the emotional distance between your current reality and your desired reality. Something that feels like it is months away begins to feel closer. A future event becomes a familiar memory, and what feels familiar to your mind becomes easier to accept. The journey that once seemed long begins to feel natural. The thing that looked impossible begins to feel inevitable. This is not about forcing reality. It is about changing the state from which you experience reality. Your consciousness is not limited by physical circumstances. You can mentally experience the feeling of completion before the outer world reflects it. When you place yourself in the state of already having what you desire, you begin making choices, feeling emotions, and seeing opportunities from that new identity. Now let me give you a simple practice that can make this even stronger. Every morning when you wake up, before you begin your day, take a few quiet moments. Close your eyes. Return to your desired future. See yourself there. Feel the peace of knowing it worked out. Then look backward and remember the events that brought you there. Remember them as naturally as you remember yesterday. During the day, pay attention whenever you catch yourself thinking, I want this. I hope this happens. I wonder when it will come. Immediately shift your perspective. Instead of looking forward with desire, look backward with certainty. Say within yourself, yes, I remember when this happened. Remember how amazing that moment was. Remember how everything came together. At night before sleep, return to the complete practice. Move into the future where your desire is already fulfilled. Experience that reality, then create memories from that place. Fall asleep, not as someone waiting for something to arrive, but as someone remembering something beautiful that has already happened. This practice teaches your mind to live from the end result, not from wishing, not from chasing, not from waiting, but from the feeling of completion. Let me give you some examples. If your desire is financial freedom, imagine remembering, I still remember when that money finally came into my life. I remember the relief I felt. I remember calling my family and sharing the good news. I remember how peaceful it felt to take care of everything I needed. For love, imagine remembering. I remember the day we met. I remember our first conversation. I remember realizing this connection was exactly what I had hoped for. I remember telling my friends about this person and feeling so grateful. For success, imagine remembering. I remember when I received that opportunity. I remember the moment I realized my hard work had paid off. I remember sharing the news with my loved ones. It is hard to believe that moment was months ago already. For health and personal transformation, imagine remembering. I remember when I started feeling better. I remember seeing the positive changes. I remember the moment I realized my strength and energy had returned. That was the turning point in my life. Notice the difference in the language. You are not begging. You are not hoping. You are not trying to convince yourself. You are remembering. You are creating the feeling of an experience that already belongs to you. When you practice this consistently, something amazing begins to happen. You stop obsessing over the details of how your desire will arrive. You stop forcing situations. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control every step. Why? Because when you remember something, you do not question how it happened. You only know that it happened. The details become less important. The outcome becomes certain. This is true freedom. You are not giving up on your desire. You are simply releasing the anxiety about the path. And when you release the need to control every detail, you allow possibilities to appear that you could never have planned yourself. The right opportunities can emerge. Unexpected connections can appear. New doors can open. The path can unfold in ways beyond your imagination. A person once dreamed of creating a successful business, but they had no money, no powerful connections, and no clear plan. Every time they thought about starting, they became overwhelmed by everything that seemed impossible. They focused only on the obstacles. I encouraged them to stop asking, "How can this happen?" Instead, I asked them to move 1 year into the future. Imagine the business was already successful. Imagine everything was already working. Then look back and remember how it all began. They practiced this consistently. Slowly, the fear disappeared. They stopped seeing only problems. They stopped feeling defeated by circumstances. They developed a quiet confidence because internally they had already accepted success as part of their identity. Within months, unexpected opportunities began appearing. A previous connection offered support. A simple conversation created a major opportunity. The resources they needed came through channels they never expected. The path formed naturally because they stopped trying to force every step and started living from the assumption that the outcome was already possible. At night before sleep, return to the complete practice. Move into the future where your desire is already fulfilled. Experience that reality, then create memories from that place. Fall asleep not as someone waiting for something to arrive, but as someone remembering something beautiful that has already happened. This practice teaches your mind to live from the end result, not from wishing, not from chasing, not from waiting, but from the feeling of completion. Let me give you some examples. If your desire is financial freedom, imagine remembering, "I still remember when that money finally came into my life. I remember the relief I felt. I remember calling my family and sharing the good news. I remember how peaceful it felt to take care of everything I needed." For love, imagine remembering, "I remember the day we met. I remember our first conversation. I remember realizing this connection was exactly what I had hoped for. I remember telling my friends about this person and feeling so grateful." For success, imagine remembering, "I remember when I received that opportunity. I remember the moment I realized my hard work had paid off. I remember sharing the news with my loved ones. It is hard to believe that moment was months ago already." For health and personal transformation, imagine remembering, "I remember when I started feeling better. I remember seeing the positive changes. I remember the moment I realized my strength and energy had returned. That was the turning point in my life." Notice the difference in the language. You are not begging. You are not hoping. You are not trying to convince yourself. You are remembering. You are creating the feeling of an experience that already belongs to you. When you practice this consistently, something amazing begins to happen. You stop obsessing over the details of how your desire will arrive. You stop forcing situations. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control every step. Why? Because when you remember something, you do not question how it happened. You only know that it happened. The details become less important. The outcome becomes certain. This is true freedom. You are not giving up on your desire. You are simply releasing the anxiety about the path. And when you release the need to control every detail, you allow possibilities to appear that you could never have planned yourself. The right opportunities can emerge. Unexpected connections can appear. New doors can open. The path can unfold in ways beyond your imagination. A person once dreamed of creating a successful business, but they had no money, no powerful connections, and no clear plan. Every time they thought about starting, they became overwhelmed by everything that seemed impossible. They focused only on the obstacles. I encouraged them to stop asking, "How can this happen?" Instead, I asked them to move 1 year into the future. Imagine the business was already successful. Imagine everything was already working. Then look back and remember how it all began. They practiced this consistently. Slowly, the fear disappeared. They stopped seeing only problems. They stopped feeling defeated by circumstances. They developed a quiet confidence because internally, they had already accepted success as part of their identity. Within months, unexpected opportunities began appearing. A previous connection offered support. A simple conversation created a major opportunity. The resources they needed came through channels they never expected. The path formed naturally because they stopped trying to force every step and started living from the assumption that the outcome was already possible. It is the same principle in every area of your life, because the mind responds to what feels real, not merely to what is repeatedly wished for. Think about how memory works. When you remember a vacation, a celebration, or a meaningful conversation, you do not struggle to make it feel true. You simply revisit it. The emotions return naturally because your mind accepts it as something that belongs to your story. Now imagine using that same inner process for your desired future. Instead of saying, "I hope one day I become confident," begin remembering, "I remember when confidence finally became natural for me. I remember walking into every room without fear. I remember speaking with calmness. I remember realizing I no longer needed anyone's approval." Instead of saying, "I hope people appreciate me," remember, "I remember when people began respecting my presence. I remember how different life felt once I stopped seeking validation. I remember realizing my worth had never depended on anyone else's opinion." Feel how different those words are. One comes from lack, the other comes from fulfillment. This is why your inner conversations matter so deeply. Throughout the day, your mind is constantly talking. Sometimes it quietly repeats, "What if it never happens? What if I fail? What if I'm disappointed again?" Those conversations become emotional rehearsals for the very experiences you fear, but you have the power to replace them. The moment you notice yourself worrying, gently interrupt the pattern. Instead of imagining another problem, return to your remembered future. "I remember how everything worked out. I remember being so grateful. I remember laughing because I realized I had worried for nothing." This simple shift changes the emotional atmosphere of your mind. Peace begins replacing pressure. Faith replaces desperation. Expectation replaces fear. That is when your imagination becomes a place of refuge instead of resistance. Do not worry if it feels unfamiliar at first. Every new habit feels unnatural until it becomes familiar. There was a time when worrying felt automatic because you practiced it every day. Now you are practicing something different. You are training your mind to expect fulfillment instead of disappointment. Little by little, your emotional reactions begin to change. Situations that once caused anxiety no longer control you. Delays no longer feel like rejection. Obstacles no longer appear permanent. Why? Because deep within yourself, you already remember the ending. And someone who remembers the ending walks through uncertainty very differently from someone who fears it. This does not mean you stop taking action. It means your actions come from confidence instead of panic. You make decisions with clarity instead of desperation. You speak with assurance instead of fear. You notice opportunities that anxiety once prevented you from seeing. Your outer world begins reflecting the quiet transformation that first took place within. That is how lasting change begins. Not by forcing reality to change first, but by becoming the version of yourself who already remembers the life you once dreamed about. So tonight, before you close your eyes, let this become your final conversation with yourself. I remember when everything changed. I remember when peace became my natural state. I remember when love found me. I remember when abundance flowed into my life. I remember when I finally understood that what I was seeking had been moving toward me all along. Fall asleep holding those memories. Wake up carrying them into your day. Return to them whenever fear tries to rewrite your story. Because the future you desire does not begin on the day it appears in your outer world. It begins the moment you start living as the person who already remembers it.